Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. I'm telling you, every time we get together, I learn so much, not just about health, but about her, because she is just so many different angles. There's so much going on, so much knowledge, depth in terms of our health. And she runs a company called Revitalist, which is a leading mental health company focused on different types of therapeutics, including ketamine. And that's just a piece of what's going on there. And great to have her back here. Something very fresh I just learned about Katie Walker. How you doing today?
Hey, Steve, I'm doing great.
So tell me about this lab. You're opening up a lab. You have your company, you have multiple locations around the country, and now you're opening a lab. What's going on here?
Okay, this is exciting, and this is going to take a second for people to hear because it's new. And it's new in my brain, so it's typically new in other people's brains. So the lab, this is the neat thing about the lab, opening up in January in Knoxville, but it's going to be something called a reference lab. So anybody across the country, across the world can send us blood, and it can actually operate underneath our proprietary protocols. So here's what we're doing. We're reverse engineering the way we look at everything, right? That's what I do in life anyway, is reverse engineer everything. So now we're reverse engineering the way we look at labs. So right now, for example, with a lab, say calcium. What we do is with calcium, say your calcium's high. I'm going to tell you, Steve, your calcium's high. I need you to avoid products that have extra calcium in them because we don't want it to get any higher. We want to really kind of learn how to manage this, right? Because something's going on, it's making your calcium high. And I'm going to send you to a nephrologist to watch your calcium levels, because sometimes if your calcium's too high, it can hit your kidneys. And we really want to make sure that we're managing your kidneys and such to make sure you don't go into chronic failure of, right? That's what we do every day, probably millions of times a day. That's what we do in healthcare. Well, here's the fun part. Why aren't we looking at what makes your calcium drop? Why are we giving medication to help make your numbers look better, but we're actually not addressing what's making your calcium go up? We just expect, oh, it's a deficiency. It's a defunct dysfunctionality, and we just got to manage it because your body's operating wrong now. If your calcium's high, guess what the reverse to calcium is B12. So it's an inverse ratio, right? So if your calcium's high, more than likely your B12's low.
Wow.
If we raise your B12, we're going to lower your calcium, right? And that's how a lot of things in our system operate, right? Calcium and magnesium, those little guys are opposites of each other. If your calcium's high, typically your mag's low. So why aren't we going in and looking at what antagonizes that and give it to that person? Because everything in our body is a chemical reaction. We can go in there and mess with all these different things, and that's not what we're doing. So with this lab, it has AI, right? It has the AI bot up front to where she helps to kind of assess you, gives a gross summary of that. And then we're drawing blood. We have EEG. So your brain waves, we're looking at your brain waves, and we're also doing an EKG. So we're looking at your cardiac waves as well. So between your heart, your blood, and your brain, all three of those communicate with each other. Believe it or not. Like most of the time, we go to cardiologists and they're like, oh, I only focus on the heart. Well, the heart has a ton of protein interaction. The brain has a ton of protein interactions. Your blood has a ton of protein interactions, and a lot of the signaling that goes on in our brain, body, gut, whatever else, is through protein interactions. So if this little guy starts it's like, what is it, the game that you play when you're little, when you start whispering to each other and
pass it on.
There's
pass it on.
Yeah, yes. So it's like at the first person to the 20th person. If that first person doesn't hear the right statement and they keep saying over and over and over, and eventually it gets to this person, it's completely wrong. That's exactly what our body does. It's one cell that's communicating that's off track, and then that keeps going. Let's go back to the original cell, but let's optimize that original cell, and let's break all of this. So what started this whole lab thing was, when I had a board member, she's like, you should open a lab. And I was like, I've been in medicine for 20 years. And I was like, I know how to draw labs. I know how to run labs. I know nothing about operating a lab. So we've learned that. I've learned that. And it's very different, very, very different in healthcare. It's its own communication style. But what we want to do, Steve, is this reference lab, anybody can come to it. Walk in. Just walk in. We can draw your blood, we can do a brain scan, we can do a heart scan. And this takes less than 20 minutes to do all three of these tests. And then you get that cross correlation. So what I mean by that is our heart has over, and there's probably more, there's more than 100 pathways, Steve, that they think are primarily indicative of mental health. So they think that our heart has more direct correlation to our mental health than our brain. And think about, how are we measuring mental health right now? By what I tell you I'm feeling, like the verbalization, like we're experts with the way we verbalize. So if the heart's showing certain electrical patterns, it's giving us insight to show what's going on in our brain. And the reason we're doing EEG, so EEG is your brain wave. The reason we do that is because we want to see what's hyperactive, what's hypoactive. Because if we can see what's functioning too fast or functioning too slow, we can actually give you real-time interventions to say, Steve, these waveforms are hyperactive. How about you try meditation 5 minutes a day? And then let's get you back in 30 days. Let's measure that and let's see if that's lowering down, because if it's lowering down, it's probably going to make your symptoms of anxiety or OCD or insomnia better.
And just 30 minutes a day of meditation could make that much of a difference?
Oh, it's huge. Yeah, I think it was Johns Hopkins who did that. No, if you do meditation, it was like 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week. You can change your body's entire landscape. Like that's how for years they've been looking at, there's certain people who can get into a certain mindset to actually decrease cancer markers.
Wow.
Right? It's inflammation. That's all it is. And our body gets in this cycle of inflammation. We don't know how to stop it and we medicate it. You don't medicate inflammation to stop inflammation. You have to stop it at the beginning. And right now we're just making it look better on the end. And that's the same thing. So neurodegeneration, right? So what this lab is made for is so we can this is the way I describe it to people. When you go to your primary care, they're looking at your house, like the external piece of your house. So they're doing your blood pressure. Only thing that is measuring like vibrations is your blood pressure, right? They're feeling of your heart rate. They're listening to the frequency. They're listening to your lungs, right? We need an internal report. What in the heck is going on internally, right? And the only, look, people love functional MRI. That's like the gold standard, functional MRI. And, but that's a scan that takes a picture in a moment of time. We need real time. EEG is real time. So we need real-time things so we can see all these things, so we can cross-correlate them, so we can auto-regulate the entire system. And once we auto-regulate that, then we can really start to see what's going on. So, this lab, we've made it for now to where, people who are 10 years old and up can come in. Because the other thing that drives me crazy, I don't know if you've noticed this with me, Steve, but if I'm sitting there watching something on TV and I see something's wrong, I'm like, oh, time to fix that. Like, no, we're not doing that. Like, when I saw there was a 12-year-old actually in Tennessee at Vanderbilt, 12-year-old Steve, had a heart attack.
Wow.
12 years old. What is that? What is it? Why do we have children that are dying on the playgrounds who have no pre-existing conditions? Why do we have people dying in their sleep? I don't know. Nobody knows right now. And it's gotten significantly worse since COVID. So with COVID, is COVID, do we all, and there was data that came out recently that said they think that we're all walking around with low levels of the virus in our system.
Yes.
So we're all walking around just in these just barely some inflammation processes. And if we're walking around with more inflammation than we had, we're going to have electrical issues. And it's probably a lot of electrical issues, right? So of the heart, the brain, the blood, and we've got to address that electrical problem that's going on.
Wow.
So that's what the lab, yeah. So
I can't believe you're talking about this, because I would say I have evidence of what you're talking about. I've never had COVID, and I hung with a coworker a month and a half ago, and he had a condo on the beach. Come down, hang out. I'm like, yeah, sure, free stay, no problem. I go, and he's coughing. I'm like, what's up? What's going on there? He goes, it's an allergy. Oh. And like right away, I'm like, beep, 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 beep. But I'm in. I'm hanging with him, so it is what it is. I come home, and 4 days later, I have a fever. Had it for 4 days, went down with Tylenol, right? And I'm transparent. I can tell you anything. After that, I had acute laryngitis. I went for labs, and my ferritin levels are like, that's an iron store, very, very high. And also, to your point of, now again, I took tests. I didn't do a PCR, but I went to urgent care. And then, of course, I did my own test. No COVID, no flu, nothing. I never get sick. I mean, it's been half my life since I had a fever, right? I have minor skin cancer, been dealing with that for years, just take care of it, whatever. It exasperated right after that. I have an area right here that it just like, what the heck's going on? To me, too coincidental. There's something, virus connected, and probably something, I want to say maybe COVID connected, and the ferritin levels, they haven't figured out why they're high. But back in the day when COVID first started, ferritin was a marker for COVID. That's how they started realizing that, oh, wait, look at the correlation. So even the hematologist, after many labs, he's like, you're healthy. I don't see anything. These are just elevated. Give it some time, come back. Maybe we could do some imaging on your liver, blah, blah, blah. I feel fine. So to your point about COVID and, low level just hanging out there, I think so. I'm feeling it because these different things, virus connected. I never had any issues. Like, the skin cancer thing, like out of nowhere, bam, like that doesn't happen. Your body, that never happens. I know it's connected to whatever I had.
Yeah, no, you're right. And, and here's the thing too. And I think this is the neat thing, like my degree with anesthesia is the only thing. And I guess where I worked in the ICU for a long time. In medicine, we don't cross correlate things. We rely on each other's specialties, which is great. But unless like with anesthesia, like we had to learn everything, like every organ, every age, all of it, right? All the dosing, all the things, for all these different things. And, so when I sit down, I'm like, why are you not looking at the brain? Why are you not looking at the heart? Why are you not looking at the blood? Why are you not looking at all these things? The way a specialist looks at brain, blood, heart is like, if they're a cardiologist, they're going to first they're going to say, I'm a cardiologist. I don't look at the brain waves. Or they're going to look at blood and say, I only look at the cardiac identifiers, right? And if something's high, they're like, I don't know, like send them to the kidney doctor or the pulmonologist, lung doctor, or something like that. What we've got to get back into is seeing, even though we're specialized in the heart, we need to see the heart and how does it function with the brain, with the kidneys, with the gut.
Yeah.
And we've become so siloed in medicine that doesn't exist. Like there are no comprehensive specialists. Now, integrative medicine is great. They're trying to look at it from that level. A lot of alternative medicine, like naturopaths, they'll look at those things too. But really, that should be the core of medicine, and it's not. So I'll get people who come in and they'll have 9 specialists, and the 9 specialists don't speak to each other. And the only commonality is that person. And it's like, so here's the person who's going to all these 9 specialists, and they may be given all 9 opinions. And, and that's probably why the healthcare system is imploding tremendously, and we've all become specialists down this like one path on the right side, but nobody sees that there's 100 paths actually involved in this. This is one. The body is one. It's not siloed compartments like we treat it. And that's what we've got. It lives together, It's like, I don't know, what is it? What was that culture thing that came out a long time ago? Like in culture across, it was something with culture. But it was like we do need to, within our body, we need to recognize all these guys and gals live together. Our kidneys are living with our gut, are living with all these things. And we need to respect all of them. None of them are more important than the other.
The integration seems so reasonable coming from a non-medical professional that there is a connection. If everybody commiserated, let's say you have this specialist, that one. If they all connected, maybe they could help each other and realize, like, for example, what I was just describing, coincidentally, I went to the cardiologist, had a follow-up appointment 6 months later, blah, blah, blah. And my triglycerides were a little high. So I'm like, I just want to mention, I saw that on the labs. And I had this virus thing a couple of weeks ago, and I took the lab 6 days after I just had a fever. and it was pigging out big time. And I'm like, could it be, he didn't even want to hear it. He's a great, I'm happy with this doctor, but he's like, no, don't worry about the try. Yeah, you're fine. I'm like, well, they're a little high, and it's kind of coincidence that I had a virus. I'm like, it wasn't even on his radar.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not. And then unfortunately in medicine, we disregard you that way. He doesn't even see, that disregard. So okay, because I'm still with the lab thing. It's really neat. We actually have a lab bot. It's literally me. Looks like me. And
is that the AI thing?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep,
I saw that.
yeah.
I saw that on your website, and I was like, wow, that's pretty cool.
Oh, it's fascinating. And the guys who built her, she's they're all PhDs, MDs, worked at MIT's AI centers and such. And she does, gross analysis of everything, and just really they did a really, really good job. But she's going to be a part of the lab as well. So when you get your blood drawn, she'll give you recommendations, right, for these different things. So here's an example. Let me give you an example. And I've got my lab matrix here. This is where I have to go down my rabbit holes because I have to make the large language model for her in order for her to make sense. So if we go into ferritin here, so here's a fun piece with ferritin. So ferritin specifically, so cytokines, right? So cytokines, this lab's going to focus a lot on inflammation, cytokines, proteins. Okay. So cytokines are inflammatory markers that we have in our body and we want them to function normally, right? So what happened with COVID is, like I tell people all the time, COVID didn't kill people. It was the body that killed itself because COVID was so foreign. It didn't recognize anything. So this foreign invader comes in and the body's like, nope, absolutely not. And it created something a lot of times called a cytokine storm. So cytokines are little tiny warriors in our body that are fighting things. That's great. We need cytokines. When you get a cytokine storm, that's when everybody in your body has lost its mind and it's coming in and it's going to slam. It's the nuclear bomb that goes off within our body.
Wow.
It's come to slam everything. So when people got COVID and they had a cytokine storm because of COVID, that's what killed them more than likely was the cytokine storm. The body was killing itself. It started eating itself because it got off track and it thought it was supposed to, right? So with your ferritin levels specifically, thinking about cytokines. So short note here. So cytokines and ferritin do have a direct translation. So cytokines can indirectly affect ferritin translation by increasing nitric oxide, which inhibits ferritin translation. So sometimes when numbers are high, they're actually not high. They look high on the labs, but they're actually not high. There's more ferritin maybe floating around that's getting picked up more quickly. And there may not be as much ferritin actually in the cell, but more on the outside of the cell. So it's giving it abnormal. So it's not translating it, but two, if it's not translating it, it's not using it either. So some people will have high levels of, but they can't use them. So you may not even have symptoms of like hemochromatosis, which is high iron. You may have symptoms of like low iron, though your iron's measuring high. And it's because there's a translation link missing. So your body comes to a point with it's like communication, right? It's like point A and point B. You still have iron being produced. Your body still needs iron, but the communication link on the inside is broken. It can't. It's like there's a communication barrier now there with the system. So the system's not using it correctly. So one way, we do ketamine at the clinic. So ketamine can lower ferritin, and ferritin can stimulate a cytokine storm. And then ketamine, so ketamine actually stops cytokine storms. It's an anti-inflammatory.
Wow. Mm-hmm. How do you spell cytokine?
It's cytokine.
Gotcha. Wow.
And then B12. So here's something with your ferritin. So B12 can have a low, either a low or a direct correlation with ferritin. And vitamin C, believe it or not, vitamin C actually, you want to give vitamin C to people if they have low ferritin because it actually improves ferritin absorption. If it's high, here's you one, Steve. If your iron's high, you should look into glutathione. Do you know what that guy is? Glutathione.
I've heard that many, many times.
Yep. Okay, so here's your two recommendations: glutathione and zinc.
And zinc.
Yep. You want to have those two things if they're high. So glutathione, when I first heard about this, I was like, where am I? Why do I not know about this stuff? Right. And this is how in medicine, like, because we know so much and you come out and you're like, I know nothing. Like, so glutathione, love glutathione. You can get it in IVs
Right.
at vitamins. And you can take it different ways, but IV's the best. Glutathione is an antioxidant, much like vitamin C. It's very similar to vitamin C, but glutathione is stored in our liver and our lungs. And as we get older, our glutathione stores decrease. So when those glutathione stores decrease, we lose flexibility, like in our system, right? That's when we start getting like hypertension because we're losing that elasticity in our vessels. A lot of people who have like irritable bowel syndrome, gut issues, they typically have a low glutathione level in their body. But the really neat thing about glutathione, and I would wonder in your situation, they should probably check your liver too, just because liver has a lot of inclusive data when we're struggling with viruses. But glutathione, there's studies out there that glutathione can reverse liver damage. Iron has a lot, works with your liver a lot with different things like that. So,
Yep.
yeah, so definitely glutathione and zinc. We don't give zinc nearly as much credit as we should, but zinc limits the viral load. So it will actually decrease. Zinc will decrease as long as viruses act.
And I guess that's why they say take zinc to ward off a cold or something like that, right?
Yeah, it just shortens it.
Yeah, right.
And then here's your triglycerides. So elevations in glucose and triglycerides, as well as lipid abnormalities, may be associated with an autonomic dysregulation. These markers are signs of elevated inflammation.
Which could have been the inflammation from the virus that I had.
100%. Yeah. So are they correlated? Yes. Here's what we do, right? Here's what we do in medicine. Steve, your lipids, your triglycerides are high. Let's get you on some meds to lower that number. And when all in fact, it could be, it's not that your triglycerides are high. It's that there's something going on that's making your body be inflamed,
right?
Having the triglycerides look high. And they are temporarily, but don't start doing medication just to shove down that number. Let's go fix the inflammatory process first.
And it's getting to the root cause, which is called holistic medicine, essentially,
Yeah, it's
right?
holistic medicine, and that's the thing, like with kids, like with TBI, CTEs, so TBI, traumatic brain injuries, CTEs, chronic traumatic encephalopathy. That's what you see with a lot of your NFL guys, your NHL guys, lacrosse, soccer, different things like that. Veterans who are around a lot of explosive materials that vibrate. If you're around a lot of vibrations, even construction workers,
wow,
those are consistent traumatic brain injuries because the brain can't handle that much vibration. We only have three things, Steve, in our brain. In our brain, it's like, you got your cranium, your bone, your structure, you've got your brain, and then you got the fluids surrounding it, which is your cerebral spinal fluid. You got three things. That's it. If that brain shakes a lot, it's hitting your skull and it's causing consistent damage. It's not the initial blow that causes the damage. It's the 7 to 10 days after, because there's an inflammatory cascade that kicks up. And that's why they're like, oh, keep an eye on them for the next 7 to 10 days.
wow.
Only thing we're doing is like sitting there, like watching damage take place. It's like, no, stop it. Like, stop it. Stop the 7 to 10 days, and that's what we've got to identify. So that's why I made it for these, kids going down as young as 10 years old. If they're in sports, if they're in football, if they're in anything, right? They're having behavioral issues, like their little brain's growing so fast until the age of 26. Let's try to figure out, like, let's help their brain grow on a direction to where we want it to grow. Let's not start medicating it and stopping its growth, which we do. And people are okay with giving 4-year-olds medications that are stopping their brain growth. And it's like, no, like, let's put it on the right path and let it grow this way. Like, don't stop a 4-year-old's brain from growing. Just started.
We're out of time. I just keep going. I always say this. This is like fascinating. And got to say, and I'm not just saying this because we're here together, it all makes sense. Everything you're saying makes sense, but like you said, the healthcare situation, quality of care, insurance, let's not go there, imploding. There's
Oh,
such.
you wait. I'm disrupting that one too, Steve. That's
Oh,
so much.
I'll
That's so
help.
much to do. There.
Whatever you need, I'll help you.
We can do it together.
Yes, and with happiness.
See there? This is my shirt. This is actually a World War II. I got this at a World War II museum.
Wow.
But it's a good shirt for what we're trying to do with the company. Is
That word resonates with me. I moved a couple of years ago, and I was wondering if I made the right choice for me and my daughter. And I left my place, and I came to a light, and I was actually asking universe, just I get like that sometimes. Like, throw me a sign that I'm doing the right thing over here. Get to the light, and it's a corner I pass all the time. Look up, and there's a business. I think might be a medical business, and huge letters said victory. And that was like, thank you. All right. Appreciate that. I got my validation. So that does resonate. Revitalist.com. Do I have that right?
That's right.
Cool. Yeah. Go there to learn more. I'm going to play around with your AI and, fascinating, what you've created there. Lots more questions. We're like literally way over time, but wow. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, look up nitric oxide with your ferritin level. Look at what stimulates nitric oxide and ferritin, because those are a lot of things that you can do holistically that can help alter it.
My gut tells me it's all connected to the virus situation somehow,
Absolutely.
some way. Yeah. Inflammation, which we talked about. Thank you so much for today. Amazing. Just amazing. The knowledge you have and the way you look at things in an unconventional way, which seems like the way it should be done. Appreciate it. Happy holidays, by the way, to you and your family.
Hey, happy holidays to you too, Steve. And
All right.
happy to be here. And yeah, let's keep pushing forward.
Yep. We'll catch up soon. We'll be right back. Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Adopt US Kids presents Multiple Choice Parenting.
Your daughter just had her first breakup. Do you A, put yourself in her shoes?
How could he do this to you? And for Sheila, she has split ends.
B, console her?
Oh, sweetie, this is going to happen a lot. 4, maybe 5 more times before you get married.
C, take charge?
Got to get this all straightened out. Keep a little talking to, man to man, mano a mano. Hey, Steve! Is now a good time? No? Okay, no problem. Bye.
Or D, help her find a new boyfriend?
I know a great place to meet boys. The internet. Nice, single boys. Never mind. How about some ice cream?
As a parent, there are no perfect answers. But you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
For more information on how you can adopt, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.